Smoking was a big leading cause of death.
A sedentary lifestyle or low activity lifestyle would be less than 5,000 steps per day. If you were sedentary for more than 8 hours out of the day, that's when we really start to see the health risks associated with it. Living a sedentary lifestyle makes you more prone to having metabolic syndrome.
Sitting is the new smoking. So 3.1 million people die prematurely from not moving.
With a little health and a little wealth and a lot of love, that's the life that we live. Seuss and Scrubs.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Seuss and Scrubs. A little health,
A little wealth,
and a lot of love. Joined with me is Emily M.D. He's double board certified in internal and obesity medicine. We just got back from a conference in functional medicine.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, you want to just talk a little about that?
We did. We went to a conference in Miami, and it was put on by the A4M, and they have functional medicine. What's the word that I'm looking for? Functional medicine guidelines. I'm drawing a blank.
I don't know.
Philosophy, that's the word I'm looking for. So they follow functional medicine philosophy, but they have a focus on anti-aging and regenerative medicine as well. And they also focus on aesthetics, but this in particular was a conference on bioidentical hormones. It was focused primarily on women, but I would say a little bit of information on men as well. But they talked a lot about management of menopause and management of PCOS. It was very interesting.
Yeah, Listen, my eyes glazed over when they started throwing the chemistry on there. But what's interesting about these conferences is that they'll do studies. And there's a golden rule of how to practice medicine based upon trials and things like that. And it's taught in medical school. But these guys really push the envelope based upon their own experiences as well as the studies. And a lot of this, you can speak to it earlier, because we had a huge debate on the way back home. You have to understand the population and the studies. So if you read something and for someone like me, I don't know, you'll read something, it's like, this is bad for you, or this is not good for you. And then you look at the sample size, then you look who did the study as a pharmaceutical company, and then, the data can be skewed in a way that can favor the outcome. So if you are more interested about this, let us know and drop us a line. We're going to explore these topics heavily on this podcast. So that's our fun fact for Emily. So over to you, Emily.
For those of you who don't know, I am joined by our co-host, Mr. Zachary, SVP.
Hi.
He's our finance and real estate investor and has managed over $1 billion to date. He also has reached his Coast Fire number, which, if you don't know, is part of one of our main pillars. You should watch one of our first episodes to learn a little bit more. And fun fact about him is that he hates headbands, but he loves pigtails. And so we're balancing it out today.
I feel like every man loves pigtails. Why is that? Is that just weird?
I don't know.
I could say something terrible like handlebars, and I did. She looked at me.
Edit that part out.
No, don't edit that part out. That's just what we do here. It's recorded date night on Suits and Scrubs. Dun, 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 dun. All right. So, one thing we did jump into was the Wheel of Punishment. Emily, you're not getting off the hook.
Oh,
we always do a rehearsal before this, guys, and we forgot to rehearse that. And it just popped in my head. I was like, wait a minute, she had a punishment. We haven't recorded in a while, even though you see this like it's consecutively. So, rhyme time. The word for rhyme time is sedentary. All right, I'll give her 10 seconds on the clock. Actually, let's pause. Let's go through our side story first. Folks who are interested. Now, the first season, we were talking about IVF. Now we're talking about acromantia. So we have gotten the supplements. Dun, dun, dun. Zoom in. So Emily just started the acromantia supplements, and I will start mine tomorrow. And so, so we got this. We got the gut health booklet. Or the package.
Testing.
Package where it has all the things in it. So we'll talk more about that in our next episode, just because we just want to just kind of highlight there. Did that give you enough time to come up with some rhymes with sedentary?
I'm still trying to think of something that rhymes with sedentary.
Oh, you got this.
Other than Mary.
Well, let's go. Boom, boom. I'm not a beatboxer, but boom,
let's see. Today we're going to be talking about the word sedentary. I don't know what else rhymes with sedentary. You just got a haircut so that you won't be hairy.
Oh,
Your hairstylist name isn't Larry or Mary.
there we go. And we ate blueberries.
We did eat blueberries for breakfast.
Rhyme time.
I am so tired of having to do rhyme time.
Yeah, rhyme time is actually, I think rhyme time is one of the hardest ones.
Let's take it off the wheel of punishment.
Right. No, but like we got, you guys vote on our punishments. So drop us a line, ask a question. There's there on the website. There's there on our social media. Drop it, and then our team behind us will gather that information. So, all right, cool. So on today's episode, sitting is the new smoking. That's right. Sitting is the new smoking. This was inspired by our next refactions. Refactions. All right. Well, actually, I'm going to play it, and then we'll talk more about sitting as the new smoking. All right. So, before I explain this, we were inspired by Emily's parents. We just got back. We saw them on the way to Florida, and Russ walks quite a bit, which is her dad's name. Not just the TV screen, by the way. We do name our parents after our equipment after our parents. And so we were just talking about, Emily's mom says, well, I saw an article where it says sitting is the new smoking. And so we talked about it, and this was Russ's response, and then Emily is going to refaction it. All right, you ready?
Emily M.D.'s father, and this guy's father-in-law. Help me, Lord.
All right, tell us, Russ, about walking. What were you saying?
All right, well, I have, first of all, I go back to when you guys gave us a Fitbit 3 years ago. I started...
we can't go 3 years back now. We got to
summarize. I realized I could track my steps.
Okay.
So, in the first year, I just basically tried to walk 4 miles a day. That was kind of my target, which was kind of hard to do because of travel and everything.
Yeah.
So I didn't get it every day. The next year, I did the same thing, trying to do an equivalent of about 4 miles a day, and then getting 5.3 million steps in a year.
Right there. I'm gonna stop right there. He's a long-winded talker, so it's about another 2 or 3 minutes of him rambling on about walking. But the gist of it, just to summarize, he had 5.3 million steps, and I think he said to me that's the equivalent of walking the entire Earth one time, or something crazy like that. And then it talks more about like the certain badge that Fitbit has, and when this man has a goal, he sets a goal.
Yeah, so
Sorry. By the way, guys, we're not drinking wine tonight. It's green tea, and anyone who knows me, green tea is just like, it's like me, 7 years old, a Mountain Dew. So if my family's watching that, there's like an inside joke there, but I won't go into it. Her dad is 70 years old, so he doesn't look like it. So
it looks pretty good for 70.
It does. So if you're listening on the podcast, check out our channel. You can see he does not look 70. He barely has any gray hair. But go ahead.
Yeah, so I think there are a lot of criticisms about the Fitbits and the Apple Watches, saying that they're not necessarily accurate, but I think there are a lot of benefits to tracking your steps, to using pedometers. It doesn't really even have to be anything fancy, but there have been studies to show that they get people up and moving, and they increase activity. And if you are like my father and you're very competitive and you have other people who have Fitbits or step trackers, it can drastically increase your energy expenditure throughout the day. And honestly, physical activity keeps you youthful for longer. It makes you able to be more functional and do what you need to do even into your 70s and beyond. So,
that's right.
So I think that's the main thing that we wanted to get from that segment.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we were just talking about this, and they're avid walkers. They make it a point to walk every single day. And, I just think about people, I know folks are busy, right? Including ourselves. Like, I didn't work out today, and I feel terrible that I didn't, because I've been so busy. I had work, I did this, and then I have all these other things up in the air. I think Emily and I decided to sleep in today. We are human, by the way. We got up at 6 a.m. yesterday. Today, we did not get up at 6 a.m. We decided to sleep with our 3-legged cat named Poppy.
Poppy Poppy.
which I was surprised. It's probably the first time I mentioned her. But we haven't seen them because we went to that conference and we just wanted to sleep with her. And we kind of rotate with them sometimes. And she likes to put all her weight. So I'm sleeping like this, and she put all her weight on that one paw. And it's like a damn dagger. I was like, ugh. And then she wants attention, and she just plopped herself on top of me while I'm sleeping at 3 o'clock in the morning. So my sleep quality was not the best. So that is why we didn't get up. That's the point of that. But we didn't exercise today because we were just kind of like out of tune, out of alignment a bit. Okay. So the second segment is Under the Microscope.
Under the microscope.
So for Under the Microscope, we will be going through some statistics, and specifically some statistics that were put out by the World Health Organization, just to kind of start us off on today's topic. So the first statistic or first fact that the World Health Organization provides is that insufficient physical activity is the fourth leading risk factor for mortality. Approximately 3.2 million deaths and 32.1 million DALYs, and that's disability adjusted life years, which basically are years of life lost due to premature mortality, and represents about 2.1% of global disability adjusted life years. So approximately 32.1 million of those years each year are attributable to insufficient physical activity. That was a mouthful, but to sum it up, basically increased risk of death and morbidity due to lack of physical activity.
And what's the percentage?
So 3.2 million deaths due to physical activity, and 32.1 million of those years, so the disability adjusted life years, are lost due to physical inactivity.
I got you. Okay, so I didn't get all that. I'm just going to break it down what I'm understanding. So there's 3.2 million deaths that die prematurely based upon their inactiveness.
Yes.
And then of that, they calculated how many years of life, like for
They
example,
were disabled due to lack of
exactly,
or
so it's
impacted functionally.
It's 32.1 million. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, I'm trucking.
And then people who are insufficiently physically active have a 20 to 30% increased risk of all-cause mortality compared to those who engage in at least 30 minutes of moderate intensity physical activity most days of the week. So that makes sense. That wasn't as much of a whirlwind of words.
No, but I think there's a lot to go off there. So 20-30% have increased of mortality. So at least 30 minutes of moderate intensity activity most days of the week. I wonder what most days of the week are. Probably like
five days a week. Yeah.
5 days a week. Yeah. Which we'll get into this more about how, so part of the 30-day challenge, we put walking desks and
Yeah, we'll touch on that later.
yeah, we'll touch on that later for sure. But I'm just saying, like, for us, if we have something like that, we might be able to increase our output and not feel so bad if we decide, hey, we missed the gym this morning. Hey, we can't go in the afternoon. So that's one of our 30-day challenges. Maybe we'll land on that next time. In fact, I think our next 30-day challenge is after my episode, which is the next time. So we'll do that. And we'll probably stair stack the 30-day challenges. Okay, cool. So the first question I have is, how would you define a sedentary? And give me some examples.
So the formal definition of sedentary is based on METs. And so they're basically activity equivalents, and there's a scale. And so if you're sedentary, or if activity is sedentary, it's considered to be less than 1.5 METs. And so the equivalents of 1.5 METs would be sitting or, reclining, basically not really expending much energy whatsoever during the waking hours. And to put that, we talked about the Fitbits and steps during our refactions, and another way to describe a sedentary lifestyle or low activity lifestyle would be less than 5,000 steps per day. And if you're sedentary for more than 8 hours out of the day, that's when we really start to see the health risks associated with it.
Gotcha. Now, who owns Mets? Is that like
No one owns it. It's just
an organization?
No, so it's METS. So it stands for metabolic equivalent of task.
Got it.
And
Is
so-
that the output of energy or whatever? Okay. Got it.
And so that's we use METs when the stress testing. It's just a measure of activity. but that's what the formal definition for sedentary is.
Gotcha. Okay. So what are the problems that can come from being sedentary? Obviously, we know some in part of our refractions and our under the microscope, how many deaths, so 3.1 million people die prematurely from not moving. And I know this hits home, so I'll always try to integrate some story time as we have these episodes. So I know very close friends of mine, one in particular, I won't say their name, but their dad retired, and he worked all his life. He actually was very, very smart, invested well, had a whole bright future in front of him, and he didn't get off the couch. He was retired, and he decided he just watched TV. That's all he did, and didn't eat very well, didn't take care of himself, and he passed away within 2 years after his retirement. And so I attributed that a lot to sedentary, and we had a long conversation about it. It's like, I just been trying to get him to move, but you just, all you want to do is watch TV and just, all that, just tired, from working his entire life. So, I just thought that always stuck with me. My grandmother, who lived to 95, I remember in middle school, and she would make us do this. She would walk 3 to 4 miles every single day. And she did. And, and then when she couldn't do that, she walked around the mall. And, I remember I was like, I hate it. I don't want to walk in, it was so boring. You had a little stick,
You're still like that. You still hate walking.
I do hate walking. I like to do things with purpose, and walking just isn't, if I work out, it's going to be intense. It's going to be high intensity training. I want to be sweating. I want to be throwing on weights. Like, I just don't feel, anyway.
If we're hiking, I'm the one who's enjoying nature, enjoying the view, and you are probably 15 to 20 steps ahead of me trying to get to the peak of the mountains.
Yep. I got somewhere to go. We got a beer or two to drink afterwards. We gotta go do something else. I do need to enjoy the journey more.
Yeah.
Versus worry about the destination. But the walking thing,
it's just not going to do it for you.
Unless, like I would say, when we were walking at some point, we were getting more into that, and we kind of fell off on that. It was really cool to listen to podcasts. In fact, this is probably where this came from. Listen to podcasts and things together that we were both interested in, because we were interested in opening up a brick and mortar aesthetics business, which is still not off the table, but we just figured there's a better way to go about it. And we're more passionate about this stuff anyway. So I digress. So we talked about the problems from being sedentary already. Is there anything else you want to say there?
Yeah, so we didn't specifically talk about the health conditions that we see. With the sedentary lifestyle, we do tend to see an increased risk in type 2 diabetes, an increase in obesity, an increase in certain cancers. And I would say those are probably more the metabolic syndrome or metabolically associated cancers.
Can you describe that? I've heard that term actually in the conference, metabolic disorders and metabolic syndrome. Will you explain? You probably said this before in other prior episodes, but I just like all you guys, I absorbed 10% and okay, what is that?
Yeah, there's certain criteria that goes along with metabolic syndrome. Some of it has to do with elevation in blood sugar, blood pressure, certain cholesterol parameters. But I typically think of it mostly as a disorder of insulin resistance and inflammation. You don't necessarily have to even be diabetic in the diabetic range or have full-blown diabetes, but a lot of people with obesity are walking around and do fit into a lot of those specific parameters for metabolic syndrome. And your adipose tissue or your fat tissue tends to be metabolically active, and it tends to release certain types of chemicals that are pro-inflammatory, and it can lead to a lot of effects and a lot of different types of cancers. So we think of kind of hormonally active cancers or metabolically active cancers, increasing risk of breast cancer, endometrial cancer. I believe pancreatic cancer is one of them, stomach cancer, colon cancer, prostate cancer. There are several different cancers that are tied to obesity and metabolic syndrome.
I did not know that.
And living a sedentary lifestyle makes you more prone to having metabolic syndrome. And then it's kind of a controversial term, or maybe not a agreed upon term, but they're starting to say that Alzheimer's is now known as type 3 diabetes, because it's thought to be tied to insulin resistance as well.
So Alzheimer's is associated with insulin resistance?
Insulin resistance and inflammation, yeah.
I did not know that. Did they say that in the conference, or that's just something you already know?
It's something that I think more functional medicine providers talk about, but I think she did mention it during the hormone management and memory loss.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. I
Lecture.
remember the hormones, right? If you regulate your hormones, that could directly impact
Your risk of Alzheimer's
exactly.
and all of dementias. Yeah.
Gotcha. So we talk about sitting is the new smoking. It's such a buzzworthy because back in the day, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this because I don't know if there's do's and don'ts. Well, I'm going to say it anyway because it's real and it happened. But when I was growing up, smoking wasn't really like, it was like the cool thing to do, you know, like everyone I knew smoked. My parents smoked, and we would actually rally around, and you know, my mom, Karen, and my dad, we would have these large trash bags of these cartons of Marlboro, I always say it wrong.
Marlboro.
Marlboro, blah. Yeah, that. And so we would sit around and we would cut off these little UPCs or whatever, and then we would collect them and we would sit there as a family. We had trash bags full, but it wasn't just her. It was like people she knew. They just, I would just have it. And we would sit there and we'd tear it off and we would get like these coats. And I was rocking the 5th grade, the 6th grade with this big old red coat. I was so proud of it, you know. Times were tough. we didn't get, we didn't get a new coat. And it was like, anyway. But I just remember how just part of the culture it was. And so I don't know if we have any stats on smoking per se, but smoking was a big leading cause of death, you know, lung disease and all that. So now they're saying sitting is the new lead cause of death. So I just want to draw that together because that's the title of the episode. I don't think we hit that home. And I think by the end of this episode, you will understand more about that. So, okay. So give me some examples or general recommendations for physical activities. Like what is recommended, maybe more like what doctors are saying, and what would you recommend?
Yeah, and just something to add on to what you were saying about the smoking.
Yeah.
The title, and there's actually a research article or an article, journal article on the term sitting is the new smoking, saying that it can be misleading because of all of the health impacts of smoking and how dangerous smoking is for you. And
That's true.
It criticizes it by saying that it's maybe not taking smoking as seriously as you should.
Right.
But I think our country has done a good job of putting specific maybe parameters in place. I mean, you can't smoke in public areas or inside restaurants. And
Right.
there was a huge drive to get people to quit smoking once we realized just how bad it was for you. But now we're seeing because people are quitting smoking and people know how bad it is for you, the causes of death are more related to metabolic syndrome and other lifestyle factors like a sedentary lifestyle and a
Right.
poor diet.
Right. Yeah, I think it's fair to call out. We're not suggesting that sitting is just as bad as smoking, but we are suggesting that as smoking was back in the day, in the 90s or early 2000s, it was hot, right? Everybody was doing it. You look cool and all this other stuff. Pretty much why. And like sitting is kind of like what people are doing now. People
Yeah,
are sedentary.
yeah.
People are connected to their phones and all that. So
And smoking, one of the biggest reasons that smoking led to death was more the cardiovascular disease and the cardiovascular impacts, not necessarily just the lung issues and lung cancer and COPD. And so now we're seeing that these other lifestyle factors are one of the main reasons that people are dying from cardiovascular disease.
yeah. So what are the recommendations for physical activity?
Yeah, there are a couple different recommendations, and a lot of us go based on the American Heart Association, and we talk about shooting for 150 minutes of moderate intensity cardiovascular exercise per week as a minimum. And
That's like less than 10 minutes a day?
so if you want
No,
to,
I'm sorry, 20 minutes a day. I'm the math guy. I butchered that.
you're not wearing your glasses right now,
that's
so it can be forgiven. So usually when I talk to patients, I would say 30 minutes, 5 days out of the week of brisk walking would be an example. Or, some of the other examples I think they give are leisurely biking or dancing, but not doing something so strenuous that you're actively breaking a sweat or you're getting your heart rate up really high. So 150 minutes minimum of that per week. And if you do high intensity training, cardiovascular training, then it decreases to 75 minutes a week. And they don't really specifically, as far as I know, and fact check me on that if they've changed their recommendations, but they don't really mention resistance training or weight training, whereas the American College of Sports Medicine does. They have the same guidelines, 150 minutes of moderate intensity cardio plus at least 2 days a week of weight training.
Right. I think with weight training, and I was telling this to the elder folk who are her parents. I tell this to my elder folk too. I think weight training, though, there's so many good benefits with that. I think when it comes to your bones are stronger. They did on the functional medicine conference, the top 10 deaths. Well, they did for women, but I'm sure it's probably equally as important for men. And some of those were just osteoporosis, osteoarthritis. I didn't know that. Heart disease is number one, and it goes on and on. And a lot of this stuff could be avoided based upon, well, not avoided, everyone's going to die, right? But a lot of this stuff could be prevented, or you can expand your life based upon weight training, because it does make you stronger. Like even hormone management. Like guys, if you're listening, the most natural way to increase testosterone is lifting. I always say leg day, because like you release a lot of testosterone. I mean, that's why I got these ham hocks. Thick thighs save lives, they say. So
Yeah.
do mine save lives?
I think you mentioned osteoporosis, and it's certainly important for elderly patients to have strong bones and to avoid falls.
Right.
And I know my grandmother, and this is a statistic, this is something that is well known in geriatric.
I hate this statistic, though, by the way. That's why I was telling Emily before you jump in there. Can I tell? I was telling Emily before, like, being married to her, like, I had things ingrained in me that, and she's about to drop this stat. So if you are listening, just stop a second, this statistic, or fast forward, because it's going to ruin your life. Because when you're older, you're thinking there, I shouldn't do this. And I was like, oh man, you just ruined this for me. But go ahead, tell us the stat.
Well, it's not, so I can't recall the specifics, but it's, for those over a certain age, so for elderly that have a pathologic fracture, that break a hip, for example, after just breaking a hip, their mortality exponentially increases, even if they didn't have a lot of medical problems, or they weren't, they didn't have a high risk of death before. They certainly do after having a fall and breaking a hip.
I think you said 12 to 18 months, by the way. But yes, that's the stat that she told me. But I think that, when we get older, maybe modern medicine will replicate and things will get better. But the reason why that is because why?
Well, your functional status is so important when you break a hip, and
What does that mean, though?
Well, certainly if you're more physically active beforehand, and you're able to, you have when you get older, something called sarcopenia happens, where you have muscle wasting. You end up decreasing your weight overall, typically from decreasing muscle mass, and then you replace some of that with fat. But those who don't actively work on their muscles, it's kind of a twofer. When you're doing resistance training, you're helping to build strong bones, but you're also helping to improve balance, and you're preventing falls in the first place. And so those who are more physically active, that have better balance, are less likely to fall in the first place. But if they do fall and they have an injury, then they're more likely to be able to work with physical therapy and be more active and rehab themselves to get back to exercising and walking again.
That's right. Well, my grandmother actually convinced, at 90 years old plus, to replace her hip. You don't know, if y'all know my grandmother, Mops,
Very
R.I.P.
persuasive.
And she still had a good 3, 4, 5 years. I think she was 95 when she passed. My other grandparents are still alive. I think my grandfather is 90 plus years old.
And why do you think he is the way he is?
Well, he's like a senior Olympian. Like, he was big into weightlifting, and and my grandmother's the same way. Like, we're not really lifting like my grandfather, but she's still living too. Like, does that mean I'm gonna live forever? if I follow in their footsteps, maybe. Anything else you want to talk about for activities? We talked about 150 minutes a week, and then there's another view that says 150 a week, yes, but also 2 days of weight training. Anything else you want to say about that one before we close that topic out?
Yeah, I think the other thing to consider too is that muscle mass is helpful for weight loss. And so if we're a certain weight and more of that weight is fat than muscle, you're going to end up burning less calories if you don't have as much muscle mass, because muscle tissue is more metabolically active.
That makes sense. So if you do pack on muscle, that's why people, I think you should get to a certain point. Like, if you're listening by this time, like my goal weight is 250. Now, during the conference, we didn't work out as much. We were busy. Got up at 7:30, blah, 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 excuse after excuse. We could have done it if we really wanted to. I'm back to 281. So I gained about 6 pounds. Like, I'm gonna weigh myself tomorrow. I'm not starving myself, but I am drinking 2 gallons of water. I am being active. I'm letting everything that I did to my body just pass through. And then I think I'll get on the scale tomorrow. I think I'll be more favorable. But I think that's important because, once I hit my goal weight, I think that is where I'll start moving more into weightlifting. That's the whole point there. So sorry, I know I'm distracting myself too. Told you I had a lot of caffeine today. So, okay, cool. So are all activities created equally?
So they're not. And this is just something to say, to talk about how important it is to be active throughout the day, that sometimes people exercise and they go to the gym, they might spend an hour at the gym and they might meet the minimum 150 minutes. It's, typically you're thought to have even more benefits if you get at least 300 minutes of moderate intensity exercise per week. But if you're sitting all day long, which a lot of people now have sedentary jobs where you're sitting at a desk all day, that still doesn't contribute to many calories burned throughout the day. So if you're really looking at, what type of activity results in weight loss or even maintaining your weight, it's usually that non-exercise activity during the day, the NEAT, the non-exercise activity thermogenesis is what the NEAT stands for. So it's, the people who are busybodies, the people who are, cleaning the house, the people who are walking more throughout the day, the people that are actually getting those 10,000 steps on top of getting, the 30-minute brisk walk in.
Yeah. We talked about that. So we said that, if we land on a 30-day challenge for the walking, we were going to compound it and just do at least 4 to 5 miles a day and track it, right? And then get into exercise, like maybe do weight training and maybe skip out on our HIIT training and cancel some of our other memberships that we have. We have a lot of memberships, so, but it's important. We don't compromise when it comes to health and wealth. This is one thing I will say, and I tell this to everyone. You pay for it now so you don't pay for it later. So if you have a few gym memberships, that will helps you keep you motivated. I strongly recommend this, and I'm a finance guy. Take it somewhere else out of the budget. Take it out of your restaurant budget. Take it out of something else. You shouldn't really cut your health budget, in my opinion. Now, we are a little extreme because right now we're cycling through products. We'll talk more about that in a future episode. I'm actually excited to share about that. But don't cut your budget in your health area, because if you will pay for it later. And the most precious thing in the world to you is time and your health. So yeah,
prevention is key.
It is.
I'm distracted and
no worries.
Completely forgot what we were talking
so
about.
All exercise is created. So you talk about NEAT, thermogenesis. When I hear a word like that, I just pause and I'm one of those people that just focus on so what does that mean? So
it's even fidgeting. Even if you talk with your hands, there are a lot of different activities it's the non-exercise activity that can still burn calories, that your body still needs energy for. And we know that exercise, everybody says you can't outrun a bad diet, that just running or exercising typically is not enough to lose weight. And as you get older and your metabolism slows down, it's not enough to maintain the same weight.
Me. Because I feel like my exercise is pretty on point. And the reason why, I'm sitting here with an extra 30 pounds now, 25, 30 pounds that I don't feel comfortable with, is because my diet, I think my exercise is good. I work out 4, 5, 6, sometimes 7 days a week, sometimes 2 days. But, I like fried chicken.
Well, the other thing too is that we both work from home now. And even before that, when I was working in an office, going from being in residency and working in the hospital and going up and downstairs and walking the wards, I would easily get my 10,000 steps in at work every day. And then I go to the office and I would probably, if I didn't work out, if I didn't exercise that day, I probably, even though I'm walking from room to room, I wouldn't get more than 3,000 steps. And sometimes even when we do exercise, the definition of low activity was considered less than 5,000 steps a day. Sometimes even when we do Orange Theory or we do a Peloton workout, we're not getting more than 5,000 steps a day because we're sitting at our desk the rest of the day.
Right. That is right. So I think it is important to incorporate. So if you are work from home or if you are in an office job, definitely explore that.
The other thing to mention too is that they did a study to see if they showed that 65 to 75 minutes of exercise a day did improve or decrease the health risks associated with a sedentary lifestyle, but it didn't completely eliminate it. And how many of our population has a hard time fitting in 30 minutes of exercise a day, let alone 65 to 75 minutes a day?
Right. That's a lot though. If you really think about it, like an hour out of your day, That is a lot. Would you count walking as, if you walk 60 minutes, would you count that as exercise?
Yeah. The biggest thing is just to avoid sitting, and the walking desk versus the standing desk probably don't make a whole lot of a difference.
Yeah.
It's more the walking desk than the standing that actually help
Yeah.
with the calorie expenditure.
I know a lot of people are busy, right? I do think everyone has at least 20, 30 minutes. Like, for example, we had that today, even though, it's now 6 or 7 o'clock and we were filming another episode. I have a meeting with my video editor later on tonight after I had all this work meetings. Like, I still could have found it. So I think I understand when you're busy. I could imagine juggling kids and football practices and baseball and all of that. It's a lot. It really, really is a lot. But I definitely think it's important. So what advice would you give people on a sedentary lifestyle? If you do have a sedentary lifestyle, like, what advice would you give them to make those changes?
I mean, we talk about walking desk, and especially in this post-COVID era where a lot of people are working from home.
Right.
And even before that, working in an office setting where you're still mostly sedentary during the day,
Right.
but at least if you're not working from home, a lot of people are walking to and from work or walking to and from the train station or the subway station, and they're still getting more steps in. But then you switch completely to virtual, then you're basically eliminating all of your activity that you were mindlessly getting before. And so I think a lot is to be said about getting these walking desks, especially for us now that we're working from home. They did some studies to show that those who used walking desks did have a better percentage of lean body mass. They were able to lose weight, less likely to be obese. And
It's not that big of a deal. Like, I don't know about you, but like, I know you'd be on the phone. Like, I have conference calls all day, but I could be on the conference call, walking and doing my thing. I could do that.
yeah. And most of the studies showed that it didn't have a major impact on productivity. I think there were a couple that said maybe it did have a slight impact on productivity or typing or concentration. But I think the benefits in that case far outweigh the negatives.
Yeah, for sure.
And even some of the benefits were seen after just 2 weeks of use. If you use it long term, I think there's a lot more to be seen from it.
Yeah. So if we land on it as part of our 30-day challenge, maybe you start to see us go lose weight. I'm just joking. All right. So Fitbits, we talked about walking. What I think is really interesting is, and we talked about this too, and those who are having issues losing weight, like to start kind of gradually, right?
Yeah.
And you want to talk more about that? Because we talked about that.
Yeah, I think a lot of times people fail because they try to overdo it. They try to do too much at once. They make unrealistic goals.
That's me.
They say, I'm going to start doing 2 days. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to work out for 2 hours. I'm going to, do both cardio and weight training. And it's easy to fall flat with unrealistic goals. And then it's also easier to injure yourself. And sometimes if you're aggressive with your workouts, then you're increasing your appetite and you're unchecked on your calorie intake.
That's right.
And so I think making slow, realistic goals, and if you are obese, if you have a lot of chronic medical issues, you haven't seen a doctor in a while, especially if you're having symptoms when you exercise, if you're having any chest pain or you're feeling short of breath, if you have a significant smoking history, if you have a lot of risk factors for heart disease, sometimes it is better to go ahead and get a cardiac stress test just to make sure that it's safe for you to start a new workout plan.
That's good advice. That's good advice. I think it's what you said the other day. It's just such a simple concept, but like every time you eat, you do a lap around the block. Just start there. Like, so you have breakfast, you eat your breakfast and just do one lap around the block. That's something you have not done before. And then do the same thing for lunch, do the same thing for dinner. That is something so manageable and easy.
Yeah.
And then as you get to week 2, maybe, or week 3, do 2 laps, do 3 laps. And then until you feel more comfortable, that's better than just nothing, right?
Yeah, and exercising after you eat, I mean, it can act sometimes like insulin and lower your blood sugars in that way. I think it's something that might seem simple to a lot of people, but that's some place to start. And then maybe weekly intervals, or even every couple of weeks, you slowly increase the intensity or the length of time that you're walking.
Yeah. And I think too, another compounded benefit of that, let's say that you are home with your child, like, take the child out, and that's a good exercise. I know some work or whatever, but that's showing them good habits and establishing that. But also, I think that just the vitamin D from the sun, just absorbing that. I always tell people this too, and this is totally not on topic, but put your bare feet on the ground and just, this is what I do. This is what I've been doing lately. I'm putting my bare feet on the ground and I find the sun. Where is this? Oh, there's my sun. Or there's my lighting sun. And I close my eyes and I just lean into the sun and I stretch my arms all the way up and I just chill my mind out for 5 minutes.
I think we get more and more granola as time goes on.
Shout out to Gaddy.
Grounders.
Grounding and vitamin D. But, Crunchy Moms, you are listening.
Forest bathing.
Absolutely. Yeah, forest bathing. No, but it's good, though. I think it's good. I think I've noticed a difference just taking care of yourself, even sleeping more or doing our skincare routines. Like, we're doing all these things to try to, improve our life, replacing the bad habits with the good habits. And now I look forward to it. We do it together as a couple. It's kind of fun. Eventually, we're going to check things off in our little database that we have and run reports. It's like, okay, this week you did all this stuff, but you didn't do this stuff. That way it's in habit. But it's not a wealth episode. Any final thoughts?
I think it's important. We've kind of touched on this throughout the episode, but it's important to choose an activity you enjoy. If you chose hiking every day, it's not something that you would stick to. Choose something that brings you happiness, whether it's taking dance classes or Zumba classes, walking while
Football. Pickleball's really big.
Pickleball has become
cornhole,
huge.
Yep. Ladder golf, which is I'm really good at. I'm really bad at all the other stuff, but ladder golf I'm actually good at.
Some people love to swim. I think that's a great cardiovascular exercise, but it doesn't necessarily, it's more of a zero gravity. It doesn't increase bone mass. So I think if you're a big swimmer, then you should also still be doing some weight training or resistance training. But there are so many activities out there. You don't have to feel like you have to fit the mold that everybody else is doing. You don't have to be a gym rat. But
we did one of those hula hoop things. Those things is fun. If we have a video of that, maybe we drop one right now. We just go woo woo woo.
Yeah, the weighted hula hoop.
Yeah, those are fun. Those are a lot of fun. Not sponsored. Maybe we should be. No, it's cool. Like, we're over there watching TV, watching music videos, hanging out, and we just put one of those bad boys around our waist and go woo woo woo. Maybe we should put that as a challenge. Maybe we do a full episode, which people listening probably would, I don't know if I want to listen to someone because it's noisy.
Hula hooping.
Yeah, hula hooping. Okay. Well, next week's episode is mine. It is guest turnover to Airbnb or not. I have a lot of experience with this. I say there's a lot of information out there. Talk to people who've done it and done it for years like I have. So that will be some good insights on that. All right. Until next time, a little health,
A little wealth.
and a lot of love. Bye, guys.
Bye.
He's on the hustle, she's on the grind. There's no time to kill. For saving lives and new deadlines, and there's some holes to fill. With a little health and a little wealth and a lot of love. That's a life that we live. Seuss and Scrubs.